The Delta Network, powered by Delta Waterfowl.
Mom, I want to listen to the voice of the duck hunter.
Right.
So,
That's tough to feel that pressure, and I would imagine with anything in life, everybody associated with John kind of looks back and kind of what ifs. You could what if yourself to death and wonder, turn this way instead of that way, and that was you were explaining some of it, and I don't necessarily want you to, again, I don't want you to talk about anything more than what you're comfortable with, but I think your situation with John, that was one of those moments where it was literally a foot in a different direction.
Yeah.
And he'd still be here.
Wouldn't have a scratch. Yeah. And, like you said, the what ifs, I remember when it happened, my brother Mark again, and he was the one that he got the phone call after the accident. One of his chiefs called him. And Mark used to be the driver for this particular guy. And he said it, showed up on his phone. He was taking my nephew Dominic, who now is a firefighter, to speed and agility training for football and baseball. And the phone rang, and it said this guy's name. And he said, I answered the phone. Oh, this is a blast from the past, because he used to drive the guy when he was a chief. And he said, as soon as he said Mark, my brother says, I knew. And he said, how bad is it? And he goes, you need to get to the hospital. So then Mark ended up calling me, and it was a weird deal that I had lost my phone like a week before, so I didn't have a bunch of phone numbers in my phone, and I never answer a phone if it's a number I don't. So it rang, and I looked at it, and I actually put the phone down, and then I was like, you know what? You don't have everybody's numbers, so I answered it, and I'd talk to my brother Mark almost every day for, 50 years at the time, and I had no idea nothing was wrong, and he goes, hey, Jim, and I was like, who is this? And, I would recognize his voice a million out of a million times, and just for whatever reason, I had no idea nothing was wrong. And I said, who is this? And he goes, Mark. I go, Mark who? And he goes, your brother, And then I go, where are you calling me from? And he goes, TMC, which is Truman Medical Center. Excuse me. And my first thought was my mom, my mom.
Oh, sure.
Elderly, And I go, what's wrong with Mom? And as soon as I said it, it dawned on me, because I'd had, earlier I said that I had a neighbor whose dad and younger brother were firefighters. He had been burned in a fire before, and they had taken him, so I knew that, when something happened, that's where they rushed him. It was the closest trauma center. So as soon as I said, hey, what's wrong with Mom, it dawned on me. I was like, he's not working. Before he can even answer, I go, he's not working today. He goes, yeah, he was working overtime. So long story short, after the fact, Mark was like, man, he got on the job because of me. He got on the job because of me. I said, man, it ain't your fault.
Right.
That's what I was telling you earlier. I says, he was trading time. He had worked the day before, and then he worked the second day because they worked 24 on, 48 off. And he worked the second day because he was trading time so he could go on a hog hunt with me. I said, so is it my fault that I planned this hog hunt? I said, it's not his fault. I said, and this is before we actually knew it was an arson fire. I said, it's just, part of the job. I said, he knew that he was, in for, or what the risks were. And I've said before that him and the other guy, Larry, I said, if you would have told them when them bells went off, hey, you guys aren't coming back, I truly in my heart 100% believe they both still go.
Yeah.
That's just kind of guys they were. I've had guys that I've talked to since, that been on the job for 30 years, and just became really good friends with them because of that night, just sort of, bond you together for people who were there. And they're like, Jim, that was the hottest fire I've ever been in. And I guess it's because they said all the acetone and all the chemicals was in this nail salon. It was just, so yeah, it was sort of a big deal in Kansas City. It was, we ended up being a, second or third alarm fire. There was I mean, I don't know how many apparatus were there, but
Wow.
it was a large fire.
Well, I guess sometimes you have to look real hard, but in this case, I don't think you have to look so hard. There's some good that has come out of this tragedy.
100%.
Yeah.
Mom, I want to listen to the voice of the duck hunter! Again!
You just heard it, buddy.
Please, I want to hear it again! Mom, the voice of the duck hunter!